record prices now, gold, coffee, copper, cocoa. You look at the news in our show prep today. They talk about, the Fed says they got this under control, and maybe it looks like they don't. No, you know who the Fed doesn't have under control? Is the spending at the United States government. The United States government is printing $1 trillion every 100 days. $1 trillion every 100 days. Just put that in your pipe and smoke it for a minute. What do you think's going to happen to inflation when they're dumping $1 trillion into the economy every 100 days? Of course we're going to have inflation, and it's only going to get worse. But it's so amazing that we keep looking for answers from the people who caused the problem. People still look at the New York Times and go, the New York Times, well, what do they say? What do you mean, what do they say? How does the New York Times have any credibility at this point? They were, leading the way. They still can't admit the Hunter Biden thing. They still can't admit it. What? How? You were peddling the nonsense that was Russian disinformation, and you weren't even offended by it when you found out that wasn't true. You weren't even offended. You didn't ask the people who told you, in the intel industry. You didn't say, "Hey, dude, you really led me astray on this one." How do these people have any credibility?
New York Times bestseller list? How about that? How about The Economist just did a story on how conservatives are shortchanged by the New York Times bestseller list. Of course, this is something you've been going through for decades now. We've known about this for a long time, and it's a much worse problem than The Economist even knows. I mean, they say that their analysis found that books published by conservative printing houses are 7% less likely to make it onto the New York Times weekly bestseller list. It's a lot worse than that.
It's a lot worse than that.
Yeah.
I mean, I said this example earlier that, my last book, which was not The Great Reset, it was Dark Future. When Dark Future came out, we sold twice the number of books. I think it was Dark Future. It might have been Great Reset. I can't remember. Twice the number of books as the author that was given the number one status. And it used to be that they would hold you out of the number one slot. They might make you 2 or 3 if it was even close. But if it was that different in the old days, you'd still get the number one spot. Now, I went from double the sales of the people they put in number one, and I made 15th on the list.
I mean, how do they justify that? That's crazy.
Their own algorithms.
Yeah, don't they weight certain bookstores more than others? Isn't that part of their deal?
Bookstores. Yeah, but they're also, but that's not enough to do what happened there. That's just not enough. They have their own agenda, and that's fine. I just wish they would be open about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stop lying to people and saying that is, BookScan is the real number 1, number 2, number 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just scans the books that are sold. Still, however, sold, through the traditional things. For instance, I don't care about this anymore. And we are doing everything we can with Mercury Inc. to print and distribute ourselves, and we still can't get away from a big publishing house distributing because it's almost a monopoly at this point. You just don't have the ability to distribute into bookstores. And then Amazon takes 50%. I mean, did you do 50% of the work, Amazon? Really?
Wow.
I just don't find that reasonable at all. But they're Amazon. So we're selling my latest book, Chasing Embers, through GlennBeck.com, which will not go through BookScan, will not do, any of the stuff.
So it won't be logged by New York Times.
No, it won't be logged by the New York Times or anybody.
Yeah.
Because we're not a part of BookScan. So, and I don't care. I really don't care. I want to I'm tired of putting my money and my effort and then putting it into institutions that are trying to kill us. Mm-hmm. Do you remember, Pat, when we used to go on tour at bookstores and how many hostile bookstores we would walk into?
Yeah.
That just found me despicable.
Yeah.
But they did it because they knew they'd sell a lot of books.
Yep.
Just tired of it.
Yeah.
Don't have to do it.
It's interesting because in this Economist article, they say that leading conservative authors like you and Bill O'Reilly are frequently listed on the New York Times bestseller nonfiction list, but less prominent writers have a more difficult time making the cut. Yeah, and like you just explained, though, while you're on the list, you're not where you should be on the list. It's not accurate because they fudge even those numbers.
So because you probably think this is a lot of whining about, trophies. It's not. The New York Times, if you get in the top 10 New York Times, then your book is automatically put in every airport. Mm-hmm. It's automatically put in the front of the stores. Otherwise, it just kind of languishes on a back shelf someplace. So, and that's what they want. That's why they don't put, that's why the Great Reset and Dark Future could not be a top 10 bestseller. It had to be 15. It could not be a top 10. Why? Because then it would get the exposure that they didn't want it to have. So by the New York Times doing this, it's not about money and it's not bragging rights. It is about exposure and having your book placed in places like airports where people go in to buy a book and they're going to, go take a flight or take a vacation and they'll see your book. They'll carry the top 10 bestsellers. And if you're not in that, you're not seen. So you don't get discovered. That's the problem. And nobody's really articulated that. They make it seem like it's it's petty, that it's I want to be on a top 10 New York Times bestseller list because that says something about me. God, it says nothing about anybody. Let's see. California's minimum wage, the $20 minimum wage for fast food workers. Yeah, kind of putting people out of business. First of all, McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King hiked prices to offset the higher cost. Who would have seen that coming? I mean, how many times does it take before people understand basic economics? The price of the goods or service goes up when it costs the company that is providing those goods or services, when it costs them more to get that to you, they raise the price. That's the way business works. Communism doesn't work that way. Communism, they just do what they want to do, and price doesn't matter. And that's why you have crappy stuff. You have crappy distribution and supermarkets that, I would feel safer. I'd feel safer in the streets in eating the food off the streets in China than I would in Venezuela in the grocery store.
It's a really hard decision too for a lot of businesses. I have a small business, and when the price of the ingredients goes up, for a while you just eat that cost. And
I know.
Then eventually you can't any longer. You can't.
So
when butter goes from $70 for the in the volume that we buy it in, from $70 to $143, then eventually that price is going to go up.
Well, that's
crazy.
The same thing. We talk about this at the Blaze all the time. You know me, Pat. I hate, because I grew up in radio, which is free. I hate charging for stuff. I'd go on. I would so gladly go on tour and not make a dime. If I didn't have to pay the money, I wouldn't charge people to come in. And I'm always arguing, can we get the price lower? Can we get the price lower? Because I remember, and so do you, what it's like when you are on the edge.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, I hope to God I'm not there again, but there's a chance that all of us are there again. And it kills me. It just kills me. And I think that the owners of stores and makers of products that actually see the end user, like I don't think Nike doesn't care. You know what I mean? They don't care. There are companies that actually care about the end user and think about them. We're one of those people. And every time we pay above industry standard at the Blaze. Okay. We're either competitive or just above industry standard. Well, you can't live on industry standard now. But what do? You keep raising it so everybody, and then not raising the price. And then if you raise the price, then the customers can't afford it and it goes away and the whole thing. This is what every business is going through right now. And, I will absolutely be convinced that this is a fraudulent election if for the first time in history, the economy doesn't play the major role. Look at, can America survive another 4 years? Can you survive another 4 years going down this road? Can you afford it? Just let's ask that. Can Americans afford another 4 years? Because everything is going up. You're not able to buy a house. You're not able to get a loan on anything that is reasonable, and it is only going to get much, much worse. And I don't know if you saw the jobs report yesterday. So in the jobs report, the Fed chief Powell came out and said, "Yeah, these jobs reports, the books are being cooked a bit." Wait, what? All of the jobs that have been created are part-time jobs, and I shouldn't say all, the vast majority are part-time jobs, and almost no American citizens are getting the jobs that are actually being reported as being created. It's almost all illegal aliens now. I mean, you hear, well, it was a pretty good jobs report. Yeah, for illegal aliens. Can you afford another 4 years of this?